extreme wealth and poverty with no way out. That is the reality that people still see in the most populous country in the world. In India, your life of poverty is not because you lack effort or have poor talent, but unfortunately, it is not within your ability. Yes, in this land, a person's fate is always decided by a supernatural power that they are taught to be reincarnation. But is it really true that human fate here has been arranged by the creators, or does it actually lie in the hands of humans themselves? More specifically, in the ruling class who use religion as a kind of narcotic to intoxicate the people. And today, let's take a train with Caste to India to see what Hinduism has done on this land. If you are a long-time audience of Caste, perhaps you already have a certain understanding of the social hierarchy in India, right? However, if you do not know yet, I would like to explain very briefly, because this will be the backbone knowledge for today's story. According to Hinduism, in society there are 4 castes. The Brahmins are the class of priests and Hindu clergy, lying at the top of the pyramid of power. Next are the Kshatriyas, the class of princes, nobles, or warriors. Third are the Vaishyas, including craftsmen, merchants, and farmers. At the 4th level are the Sudras, the class of slaves and laborers doing heavy work. Of course, there is also the Dalit class, but they are considered by the Brahmins to be too filthy to even mention. Alright, let's start the analysis. First, it must be acknowledged that Hinduism has a historical advantage that few religions can match. While religions such as Buddhism, Christianity, or Islam all originated from a specific founder with a clear system of doctrines, Hinduism has no single founder. It is the result of thousands of years of accumulation of indigenous Dravidian beliefs, combined with the Vedic culture of the Aryans, who migrated to the Indian subcontinent around 1,500 years before Christ. Precisely because it is not confined within a single doctrine, Hinduism has the ability to absorb and transform strongly. People can worship the god Vishnu, respect the god Shiva, and at the same time worship a local deity without any contradiction. While many other religions are often attached to a fixed system of right and wrong, true and false beliefs, Hinduism is like a giant umbrella covering and harmonizing countless streams of belief. This flexibility helps it not collapse when society changes, but on the contrary, it expands its influence even more. And because it easily seeps into every household in India since ancient times, Hinduism does not separate itself from social life. Instead, it takes root deeply into every basic structure of India, especially the caste system. Here, religion is not only a matter of belief, but a law that governs every breath of life. If you are born into a certain caste, you are obliged to live according to your role, because that is a sacred duty that the universe has determined. This makes Hinduism become a social order, where people have no right to deny it. Because denial is not only to go against religion, but also to go against the entire way of life, culture, and law. This connection has made Hinduism have an extremely strong adhesion in Indian society, making people from kings to commoners feel that they lie within a giant embrace from which it is difficult to escape. This is not by coincidence. For thousands of years, Hinduism has built a very sophisticated mechanism, combining philosophy, law, culture, ritual, and politics, to bind people in the belief that their caste is due to the karma of the past, decided by and tied to sacred duty in the present. They turned social division into morality, turned oppression into duty, turned submission into hope. And as a result, one of the most horrifyingly unjust systems in human history has existed persistently for thousands of years. Even when the surrounding world has many times risen up and broken its chains. Perhaps many of my dear viewers still wonder, how is it possible that the people of India keep believing in such an absurd hierarchy? Then I will start from the concept of Dharma, or sacred duty. In Hinduism, every person is born with a duty of their own, and that depends on their caste. The Brahmins have the duty to perform rituals, to study, and to teach. The Kshatriyas have the duty to rule and protect. The Vaishyas have the duty to produce and trade. The Sudras have the duty only to serve. Especially those outside of it, the untouchables or Dalits, do not even have any official duty. They merely exist as a social trace to bear impurity for others. The dangerous thing is that Hinduism has made duty something tied to the universe itself. If anyone does not fulfill their duty, they are not only betraying society, but also betraying the sacred order set by the gods. Thus, people give up from the start any thought of resistance, because resistance means opposing the divine. And thanks to this calculated coordination, Hinduism achieved something terrifying. It made people's hair stand on end. It turned injustice into something natural, into the order of life. A poor person in medieval Europe could curse their lord, could dream of rising up. But a person in India is taught that their fate is fair according to cosmic law, that their suffering is the price for bad karma in the past, that if they resist, they will suffer even worse in the next life. When people believe that oppression is natural, they no longer question it. That is the most insidious and cruel form of delusion. Along with Dharma, Hinduism uses the concepts of karma, cause and effect, and samsara, reincarnation, to console those at the bottom. You may have seen this somewhere in some temples in Vietnam where Cobra monks hang pictures of sinners being punished by demons to scare people into donating money for offerings. Those Cobra monks may exploit your faith to deceive you. But Koi Si always considers you friends. Therefore, only you can receive the special promotion. Buy one shirt and get a combo of 3 Vento accessories, worth nearly 900k, now only 589k with Koi Si's code. The ad segment. Meanwhile, in India, this has been happening for thousands of years systematically. When a Dalit is despised, forbidden to touch water sources, forbidden to enter temples, forced to live outside society, what can they do? They do not ask, why am I treated unfairly? But instead, what sin did I commit in my past life to deserve this? And the answer religion plants in their head is, because of the karma of the past. But do not despair. If you accept your fate, if you obey, if you live well with your lowly duty, then in the next life you may be born in a higher caste. This promise of a better next life is the most dangerous weapon. It lulls people with false hope, making them patiently accept injustice in the present with the illusion that the universe will reward them later, in a life that no one can ever verify. That is a spiritual chain stronger than any whip. And not only did Hinduism lull people with such doctrines, but in fact, it directly persecuted Buddhism in the homeland of the Buddha himself. Why, you ask? The answer is simple. Buddhism saw through the true face of what the Brahmin clergy used to scare people with. In reality, just exploiting divine authority to feed themselves in luxury. The Buddha, on the contrary, taught his disciples to cross the sea of suffering and rebirth by bringing goodness to others instead of harming them or themselves. He taught the way to nirvana through 3 means. First, self-control and moderation. Second, compassion for all beings. And finally, helping the poor and weak. When the Buddha preached his Dharma, it attracted followers from all classes, the rich and the poor, the noble and the lowly. Even many Brahmins became his close disciples. Later, many great Buddhist leaders were former Brahmins themselves. In the following centuries, the social teachings of the Buddha created momentum for Indian society to advance. Lower castes began to assert their equality. Therefore, the Brahmins turned against Buddhism. In truth, they did not oppose Buddhism for its philosophical or moral teachings, but for its idea of equality. As Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, former Minister of Law of India, once said, "Inequality is the official doctrine of Brahmanism." The Buddha opposed both its roots and its branches. He was the strongest opponent of the caste system and the firmest pillar of equality. There was no argument about caste that the Buddha did not refute. Inspired by his teachings, people of lower castes asserted their right to freedom and challenged Brahmin supremacy. This weakened the foundations of the caste system and brought the Brahmin class down to the ground. Naturally, the path the Buddha showed became a thorn in the eyes of the Brahmins, because it overthrew the priestly caste from its supreme throne that had guaranteed them every privilege for centuries. So when Buddhism's influence declined, they took revenge, attacking Buddhism not only with ideology but with terrifying violence. For hundreds of years, against a peaceful and non-resistant religion like Buddhism, Hinduism succeeded. It drove Buddhism out of its homeland, forcing it to drift to other lands such as Southeast Asia and East Asia, where its beautiful qualities bloomed again like a lotus rising from the mud. Meanwhile, in the Indian subcontinent, what remained was only Hinduism, and this time, there was no challenger. And just think, after hundreds of years of indulgence and intoxicating the people of this land, what has India become? Although India has declared the abolition of the caste system in its constitution, in reality, discrimination still exists. The laws, rituals, and customs have been deeply ingrained in the consciousness of generations, and Hinduism, with its rich store of philosophy and ritual, has planted too deeply the belief that caste is part of the universe. Hundreds of millions of people for thousands of years have lived and died believing that their suffering is arranged by the gods, that resistance is useless, that their only hope lies in the next life. That is the clearest proof of the intoxicating power of religion when it is used to strengthen social authority. Hinduism, once perhaps a diverse and profound philosophy, has been abused to become a tool for maintaining the caste system, a tool that binds human consciousness in invisible chains. And this is the price that Indian society has had to pay. Millions of people have been trapped in lowly status. Society divided, inequality maintained, human potential buried. Meanwhile, the upper class, benefiting from the system, continues to reinforce its power and privilege. They hold a trident too powerful through law, religion, and culture. The delusion of Hinduism in the matter of caste is a great lesson for humanity. It shows that when religion is tied to political power and class interests, it can become the most dangerous chain of all, because it not only enslaves the body, but also shackles the soul. It makes people not only endure injustice, but also believe that injustice is justice. It does not merely impose obedience, but turns obedience into voluntary faith.